meeting. That August quality event in Cincinnati. Well, after today, the acronym may not be any easier to remember, but you will know more about our organization. We've prepared about a 4-minute slide presentation outlining the efforts of OQPF, and I would like to show it to you at this time. Mark?
This is OQPF. OQPF was founded in 1985 by a handful of dedicated volunteers meeting in a basement conference room of Hobart Brothers in Troy, Ohio. 2 of the original board members are still on the board today. The organization has grown from these few individuals to an international membership exceeding 650 and a customer database of over 5,000 people. Approximately 1/2 of the membership is located in Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, and Kentucky. But we also reach as far as Great Britain, Mexico, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. OQPF's aim or mission is to promote and further the concept of quality as the guiding principle in management, exemplified by the teachings of Dr. W. Edwards Deming. OQPF is a nonprofit organization directed by a 10-member volunteer board of directors, 2 full-time staff, and special volunteer project teams, such as the conference team, which is responsible for coordinating this annual symposium. Our first Deming conference, the first in the country, was held in 1986 with an attendance of about 200, compared to over 700 we have in attendance here today. As a frame of reference, the conference committee has dates picked 5 years in advance for these meetings and will start their 1993 planning at the close of tomorrow's activities. This conference is currently the major source of revenue to sustain the initiatives and activities of our organization throughout the year. A snapshot of last year's activities will help provide a framework for OQPF's work. OQPF offers a variety of seminars, 10 over the last year, covering topics to meet the educational level, experience, and training needs of our customers. They range from Peter Schulte's one-day session on organizational change for quality improvement to Dr. Gypsy Rainey's 6-day course on methods for continual improvement. We provide membership dinner meetings throughout the year which feature presentations from managers and quality practitioners who are interested in quality improvement and the Deming philosophy. The OQPF Roundtable is a coalition of teams from Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus organizations which have met bi-monthly since 1986 under the guidance of Dr. Gypsy Rainey. These 2-day work sessions have as their mission the development and expansion of the knowledge needed to implement and sustain the changes required to continuously improve the quality and competitive position of the member organizations. OQPF provides an array of resource materials on Deming's teachings to support your continual learning. Materials include the Deming library tapes, books, videos, and commentaries on Dr. Deming's 14 points. During the conference, we encourage you to visit the Deming Resource Center in the lobby outside this building.
We are honored to have trusted quality professionals as speakers and guests. So please ask questions during the sessions, talk to each other during breaks, and approach the speakers for further insight. Have a tremendous conference and take joy in the next 2 days. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ben Carlson, another of the volunteer directors of OQPF, and I'll be your master of ceremonies for these full group sessions over the next 2 days. For your comfort and convenience, there are signs in the lobby that will show you how to find the phones in the restrooms. There is a message board in the lobby where incoming messages will be posted. And you might use that message board also if you wish to contact another of the conference attendees. If you have questions or problems, the conference staff can be identified by the blue ribbons on their name tags. And a reminder, there is no smoking in the Cincinnati Convention Center. You have just heard a presentation about OQPF. Let me tell you a little bit about you as a conference group. Actually, there are over 850 in attendance at this meeting. It's the largest in the 6-year history of the conference. 33 states plus Washington, D.C. In addition, are represented. In addition, Mexico, Canada, Japan, United Kingdom are here, or at least representatives. The largest single contingent from one organization, the largest contingent from a single organization, is 64 people from General Motors and its various divisions. Procter & Gamble has 50 people registered at this conference. And you can note from that long list of the roster of attendees that there are people here from manufacturing, from retail, from service, healthcare, education, various levels of government, so it's quite a broad representation. Tony White told you about the sponsorships that OQPF has provided for this conference. And tonight we are also making available to approximately 350 teachers, school administrators, school board members from around the state an opportunity to hear David Langford and the students from Mount Edgecombe High School in Alaska talk about their experience in applying the Deming principles in their school. We know from the substantial increase in the number of people who are here that many of you are here for the first time. However, it's always a pretty good indicator of quality when you have repeat customers. So let me see a show of hands from you. How many out there have been to one or more of the previous OQPF conferences? Terrific. Very good. Well, we know that you come to these conferences primarily, or especially at least, to hear Dr. Deming. And by now you must know the story of his history-making work in the early 50s in Japan, and of his many accomplishments and honors, some of which are highlighted in your conference materials. But I'd like this morning to tell you a little something more about this extraordinary man that is not in the usual biographical data or information. Some of you already know that Dr. Deming has a very keen sense of humor and delights in a good laugh. A few of you have found out last night that he is also an accomplished musician and composer. He's also a very kind, thoughtful, generous person, as many individuals can attest. He's quick to give credit and praise to others. He has taken a personal interest in the lives of countless individuals with whom he has worked or crossed paths, and he often calls or sends handwritten notes of encouragement to them. He has forever changed the lives of many of us, and he is working tirelessly to change the world. As we begin to understand and appreciate the concepts and principles that he is trying to teach us, we find that we see people and events in the world in very different light. More than any other individual, Dr. Deming is challenging long-standing assumptions and practices of Western management and spearheading the development of a new way of managing. We are delighted to have him here to share his system of profound knowledge and his insights with us. It's a great pleasure to welcome once again to this conference Dr. W. Edwards Deming.
Now we have an hour to do a little thinking. Maybe it's not too early in the morning to have a little fun. I just came here to chat with you about a few things. The main message that I have to offer is cooperation instead of competition. Economists have sold us down the river on competition. Competition is ruinous, destructive. This country cannot afford it. Cannot afford destruction. I'd like to start with a flow diagram. The words used may apply to manufacturing, but you could draw a flow diagram for any activity. There's a zero stage. I call it the zero stage, which is ideas in people's heads, plans, predictions, all the same thing. Any plan is prediction about a product or service that might have a market. Those ideas go onto paper, which we could call design. Design calls for supplies, of various kinds, and here they are, sources of supply. Services, they come in, go through various operations, and are distributed. We have customers. Customers are the most important part of the production line. Consumers or customers, whatever you like. And then we carry out consumer research. We study the customer, his needs, his misunderstandings. On that basis, we redesign, make new plans. Redesign may call for a new kind of supplies, new kinds of services, a never-ending cycle. It was this flow diagram, crude as it is, that started Japan on its path to quality and to preeminence in the world. This flow diagram I used with top management in Japan, 1950, and with engineers, taught hundreds of them. Incidentally, top management consisted of 21 men, and that 21 men represented 80% of the capital of Japan. Yeah, I was talking to 80% of the capital when I talked to the 21 top people. Could you get 1% together here? I'm not sure as you could. Now, This is one of cooperation and of development. Work with your vendor, suppliers. Everybody here has a job. A flow diagram is actually an organization chart, as was pointed out to me by my student, Nita Bikaitis, just finished her doctorate degree at Columbia University. My intern, a flow diagram is actually an organization chart. You can put names, put your name here. Somebody belongs here, somebody belongs over there, somebody here, and so on. Everybody on the job has a place here. He has suppliers, people that work on it before he got it. He has customers, those that use his work. And one understands why he's on the job, whom he depends on, who depends on him. Then he may take joy in his work. Otherwise, he just has a job without knowing why he's doing anything. The flow diagram puts meaning into work. Pyramid does not. The pyramid does not show the consumer, customer, tells nobody what his job is. Pyramid tells anybody who reports to whom. And that's all. That's important, to be sure. I did not say throw the pyramid away, but it is not sufficient. And as I said, the consumer is the most important part of the production line. Without the customer, there's no production line. And very interesting it is, the customer does not invent anything. All that we have has come from the producer. No customer asked for electric lights. That customers resisted them. No customer asked for photography. No customer asked for a telegraph. No customer asked for a telephone. No customer asked for an automobile. No customer asked for pneumatic tires. No customer asked for fax. All that we have has come from the producer. We want to talk here about a system. A system, in a system consists of components. And it is a network of interdependent components. I said interdependent components that work together to try to accomplish the aim of the system. A system must have an aim. Without an aim, there's no system. Wouldn't have any meaning. A system must be managed. It will not manage itself. Left to themselves in the Western world, components, by that I mean people, teams, divisions, departments, left to themselves, become selfish, competitive, independent profit centers. Independent profit centers destroy the system. A system of schools, and I'll not try to draw one. I may draw a system of schools. In fact, one, I believe, must draw a flow diagram for any activity in order to understand it. Now, what is the boundary of a system? The bigger the boundary, the more difficult it is to manage. But a system must be managed, must have an aim, must be managed. Again, unless it is managed, the individual people, teams, divisions, departments become selfish, independent profit centers, each trying to make a name for himself. And so far as they accomplish that, they destroy the system. What is the boundary of a system? Well, the bigger the better, but the bigger it is, the more difficult it is to manage. As I taught it in Japan, the whole country, the system must involve the whole country, every bit of it, a prairie fire over the whole country. A remark from Richard Seabass, Dean of Engineering, University of Colorado, would be appropriate, I believe, here. At this stage, trying to understand a system. He wrote to me thus. Agricultural research in the United States began in 1887, following England's success at the Rothamsted Experimental Station, about 75 miles north of London. A square mile of land. Sir John Russell gave that square mile of land to the Ministry of Agriculture in 1840 for experimental work. Their results have improved production of food the world over. And perhaps the greatest contribution from the Rothamsted Experimental Station is statistical theory. R.A. Fisher was there, Frank Yates, William Cochrane, others. Experimental stations began their work in this country. Agricultural agents began their work. The experimental stations carry on research, make the recommendations on what variety to plant and when, how deep, spacing of rows, fertilization, effects of rainfall, irrigation, when and how. They carry on research on fruit, production of milk, meat, wool. Recommendations and technology are transferred to county agricultural agents, to farmers. Farmers have always been quick to learn and to change. They've adopted without hesitation any labor-saving device or machinery. They've been in competition, but have always practiced cooperation. Knowledge about agricultural practices has spread to developing countries. Yield of crops has improved in some of these countries, which has diminished the demand for wheat from North America. No such parallel exists between agriculture and industry. No such spread of knowledge from America to Japan took place. When Dr. Deming went to Japan in 1950, at their request, to help Japanese industry with quality. What he taught in Japan did not exist in America and still does not. He did not export to Japan American methods. He taught there the principle of a system. Japanese management and engineers listened and learned, put into practice what he taught. He relied on cooperation between people and between companies. Cooperation has always been a way of life in Japan. The boundary of the system would be all Japan. Companies must work together in cooperation. As you learn, teach others. The transformation in Japan must be a prairie fire covering the whole country. I'm afraid that typically here in this country, the management spend most of their time worrying about competition in this forum. Here's a pie. The question is, how big is our piece of that pie? How can we make it bigger? That's typically the way management spends their time here, worrying about share of market. What they ought to do is worry about expansion of the market. Working singly or together. Worry about expanding the market. I think I have an illustration that we all understand. The three automotive companies in Detroit had, in 1960, a monopoly on automobiles, just about. They worried about share of market. How much of the market have we? How can we get a little more of the market? That's the way they spent their time, that's where their energy went. While they dickered thus with themselves, worrying about share of market, thus worrying about the competition, there were 1 million families that needed automobiles of lower first cost, greater dependability, lower running cost. 1 million, easily 1 million, waiting, not being served by Detroit. Japanese automotive companies came in and filled that market, or started to fill it up. And the Americans squeal and squawk about competition. They had the chance and muffed it. They worried about share of market. They should have been worrying about expansion of the market, working singly or together. They should cooperate on expansion of the market instead of worrying about share of market. And everybody would win. As I said, a system must have an aim. And the aim is optimization of the whole system, which does not mean optimization of any component. A component will operate not for individual profit. A component may take a beating in order to contribute more to the whole system, and thus in the end, everybody wins. A system must include preparation for the future. Preparation for the future. My own work, your own work. What about it? What ought it to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now? The world brings changes. The world is changing all around us. Slowest change, the slowest rate of motion is in the United States. Stagnant. As I said, the system must include preparation for the future. Where today are the makers of carburetors? They're gone. It didn't take them very long to go. The makers of carburetors made better and better carburetors, lower and lower cost. They had happy customers. Every automobile had a carburetor. How could it run without one? Within a year, they were gone. Sudden demise. Oh, yes, they were used on heavy trucks for a while, but no longer. Carburetors on motorcycles? I think so. Came the fuel injector from outside. Fuel injector came in, carburetors went out. It took less than a year for the whole thing to happen. In due time, the fuel injector will go out with a new kind of engine. There'll be change. We have to prepare for the future. Or today are the makers of vacuum tubes. There was a day when a radio, a good one, had 8 vacuum tubes, occupied space, but they carry it like a briefcase. It was big. The 9-tube radio cost more, was better in some ways. Or are they? They're gone. The makers of vacuum tubes made better and better vacuum tubes. More and more faithful reproduction of signals. They went. Somehow people, for some reason, ran for the pocket radio. Just put it in your pocket. Integrated circuit. Came the pocket radio, vacuum tubes out of business. Did not take very long. The future can be pretty sudden at times. As I said, system must include preparation for the future. The makers of carburetors did not prepare for the future. They were in the business of making carburetors. You might say, well, can you blame them for making carburetors? No. No, but the only trouble is that's why they're out of business. They were in the business of making carburetors, and that's why they went out of business. They should have seen themselves in the business to put a stoichiometric mixture of fuel and air into the combustion chamber. Somebody else did. Came along with a fuel injector. A company can, to some extent, govern its own future. Any group should have as its aim optimization over time of the larger system that the group operates in, purely a matter of selfish interest. In the end, everybody wins. Management of a system may lead to imagination. An example comes from the Department of Defense. The management of a group in the Department of Defense spent some of their meager budget for better housing for families in a naval base and for improvement of quarters for single men. The theory being that airplanes do not fly a second takeoff without people to fly them. good housing for the people that fly the airplanes was, to this management, an important term in the equation. Again, for optimization, the system must be managed. It will not manage itself. Left to themselves in the Western world, the components become selfish, independent profit centers, each one doing a fine job, thus destroying the system. There are delayed effects. One may spend, for example, a company may spend $20,000 for training. The only thing we know is the $20,000. That shows on the ledger, known. The benefit we'll never know. Why do we do it? Why do we spend $20,000 to train 10 people in a skill? When I say training, I'm talking about a skill. Why do we spend $20,000 for training? The benefit we shall never know. We did it on the basis of theory. We predict that there will be benefit that will far outweigh that $20,000. But the actual benefit we shall never know. You cannot measure it. The most important losses cannot be measured, but they are the ones that we must manage. Only a matter of survival. And remember this. Survival is not mandatory. Survival is not mandatory. Nobody need to survive. A job description needs revision. There's no such thing as a job description. When one understands the system, flow diagram, anybody on a job, anywhere, depends on other people. Other people depend on him. And you can see whom you depend on. From the flow diagram, you may see whom you depend on, who depends on you. Again, with that knowledge, one may take joy in his work. You could teach me how to wash tables. Teach me how to use a brush this way and the other way and around and around. How to use hot water, brushes, soaps, rags. I'm expert at it. Spent money to train me, I learned. Ask me to wash this table, I cannot do it. I cannot wash this table. No, I don't know what you mean, wash this table. Nonsense. There's no meaning to that. Not until you tell me how you're going to use the table. What's the purpose? What's the next step? Oh, we wish to eat lunch on the table. All right, now I know. Now I can wash the table. I need it clean enough to eat off of. I can do it. A lick in the spit is good enough. Now, if you're to tell me I'm going to use this table for an operating table. Totally different story. Now I scrub the table with scalding water and brushes and rags on the top, on the side. I turn upside down, do the bottom of the legs several times, and I wash the floor over a wide radius. Totally different job. But until I know how we're going to use the table, I cannot wash it. I must know what my job is. My job depends on my customers. The next stage, who depends on me? A system may be destroyed. Our system, if we ever had one, if your company ever had one, I'd ask you this question. Is it destroyed? Very simple to destroy a system. All you need to do is to draw a ring around, design, redesign, draw a ring around these, any of them, draw a ring around consumer search, put rings around the various contributors, components of the system, make them independent profit centers, and you destroy the system. I wonder how many companies work that way. I'll give you a little story. It's so easy to drop into, so easy to fall into. I spend Mondays in New York. Anybody could do that. Not this Monday. Usual Monday. Teach at Columbia University, 9 to 11. New York University in the afternoon after lunch. I got on board for Detroit, San Francisco, or somewhere. Back to Washington, home Friday night. A woman called me up from Chicago. She was with a company there, worldwide, known worldwide. She knew that I would be in New York on Monday. She wished to see me about something. Could she have a little of my time? I said, of course, we'll work it out some way or other. She said to me that she would arrive at 7. So I arrived at LaGuardia Field 7 Monday morning. My head, and she could see her purpose to go to New York was to meet with other members of her company. They begin about 1:30 in the afternoon. She would deliver a paper. Her colleagues would criticize it. They would exchange points of view. She would arrive 7 in the morning for a meeting to begin at 1:30. My head did a little arithmetic. That would mean 4:30 New York time on board in Chicago, on board. 3:30 Chicago time on board. 1:30 leave home. 00:30, half hour after midnight, out of bed. Why bother to go to bed? I said, look, you'll be a total wreck for that meeting in the afternoon at 1:30. Arrive 7 in the morning, you'll be a physical wreck. Don't sleep all night. for very little. You'd be unfit for your job. Well, she knew that. Yeah, but any other flight would cost her $138 out of her own pocketbook. Of course, she could not pay it. She was stuck. Arrived 7 in the morning. Now it's all clear to me. All clear now. I now understand. Your travel department gets a special rate on that flight. Maybe the airline pays people to ride it. I think they ought to. And speaking of competition, open entry, anybody get into the business. Let me go on the sidetrack just for a minute and proceed. Could anything be worse than our air service? Could anything be worse? Wait a month. Open entry competition. You could start an airline between any pair of cities. Start tomorrow. All you need is money. You don't need any to get a license, authorization to serve a pair of cities, pure formality. Anybody may do it. Open entry. Competition, open entry. As a result of which, there is one airline between LaGuardia and Detroit. One. There's only one way from Washington to Detroit. One airline. There's only one from Washington to Nashville. One from Washington to St. Louis. One to Kansas City. I think there are 2 to Chicago. Maybe 3 to Chicago. Washington to Chicago. In most cases, there's one, only one, no choice, open entry. That's what you get with competition and deregulation. Could anything be worse? Does anybody care enough to do anything about it? How bad will it have to get before there'll be enough noise about it? Isn't it bad enough now? Why do we wait? Now let's go on with this story. As managed now, travel department gets a plus. Give them credit. They must have got a low rate on that flight. Traveler negative, unfit for her job, better management, travel department, take a negative. Don't put her down there at the cheapest rate. Pay a little more. Put her down at LaGuardia Field at 11:30 or 12. She could still make it to her meeting and get some sleep. Be physically fit for the job. Traveler would then get pluses. And the company as a whole would win. The company as a whole would win by the travel department taking a negative. And in the end, the travel department will win. There'll be more money to distribute or increase it in pay. Everybody wins. If you stop to think about it, we have two systems. One is lose-lose, competition, lose-lose, and the other one is win-win. Everybody wins. There's nothing in between. There's no win-lose. No, I don't think so. I might have thought that at one time. I think I've grown up. It's lose-lose. Common example, another example, pressure that a congressman exerts for a federal project to go to his state, regardless of what would be best for the country as a whole. The congressman tries to get federal money for his state for any project. Never mind what's best for the country as a whole. Get it for my state. Same pressure he has to exert to hold on to a naval base in his state. Some naval bases will go out of existence. Anywhere but in my state. He tries to hold on to the naval bases in his state, regardless of what is best for the country as a whole. He dare not think about the country as a whole. If he did, he would not be reelected. He'd have no chance. See what we got ourselves into? And how do you get out? How do you get out of it? Another example. Wish you could follow me around. Here are electrical components. For the engine, let's put down engine, transmission, on both. As is, $100 worth on the engine, $80 worth on the transmission, both together, $180. A fine engineer redesigned some of the components, and by trial on his knowledge, learned that with $130 worth on the engine, you need none on the transmission. 130 total. Gain to the company. $50. Proposal rejected. Sure, to save the company $50. Proposal rejected by the financial people in charge of the engine. Our job is to decrease cost of the engine, not to increase it. Your proposal will increase the cost of the engine. Proposal rejected. Such nonsense. Our job is to reduce the cost of the engine. You propose to increase it. Proposal rejected. That would save the company $50. No consideration. Are we beginning to get the point? The company's not managed. It's not managed. Have individual profit centers. It's a conglomerate of independent, selfish profit centers, and each trying to do a good job. System destroyed. Company destroyed. Everything best is not enough. Everything best won't do it. Dr. Russell Akoff pointed out in a paper dated 1971, and probably before that, I ought to know, you could assemble all the best parts for an automobile. Never mind the cost, never mind the cost. They got blank checks all signed to pay for them. Never mind where they're made, get the best of everything that there is. You know it wouldn't run? The parts would not work together. You'd not have an automobile. Wouldn't run. And a man named Hank in Michigan Bell Telephone Company, Mr. Hank Carabelli, remarked to me about 2 years ago, a company could have the best people in it, in the whole country, the best of everybody. I mean, the best in every office in that company, the best. And the company would be swallowed whole by another company, by a competitor with people far less qualified, but working together as a system. Just having great people is not going to do it. Maybe some of this applies to university. What's the job in the university? What's the job in the hospital? All that I say applies to education, applies to any service industry, applies to health care, hospital, manufacturing. There's not a particle of difference. Wearing apparel. A man wrote to me from the wearing apparel industry. Going to have a convention. Wanted some words from me. Special for the apparel industry. Nonsense. Apparel industry is no different from any other. All that we have to present applies to a wearing apparel industry and any other. Applies to our schools. What about our schools? They're not operated as a component in a system. Optimization is obstructed. And maybe it's even worse in the universities. In the schools, optimization is obstructed by a city superintendent, a county superintendent, a school board, district board, local government, county government, state board of education, federal government, assessed by standardized tests of pupils, comparisons between districts and states, quality by inspection. That's what it is, quality by inspection. The worst kind of management that there could be. Dependence on mass inspection for quality. Anybody knows that's the way to go broke, and to turn out poor product. Deserve to go broke. This transformation into the theory of a system, everybody wins, is an individual affair. It starts with the individual. The individual must be transformed. He must transform himself. It is discontinuous. And it happened. It takes place. Let me read a letter that came to me. My marriage went from rough to rocky, rougher to rockier. Eternal trouble, win, lose. Each of us jockeying to be the winner. And I took your 4-day seminar. I learned about a system, cooperation, win-win. I explained this to my husband. We thereupon worked together on every detail, seeking win, both of us won. Result, both of us won. Who would wish to compete in a marriage? The winner would be married to a loser. Who would wish to be married to a loser? This letter raises a good question. Who would wish to do business with a loser? Would anyone wish for his supplier to be a loser? Would he wish for his customers to be losers? Would he wish for his employees to be losers? The employees of his supplier, of his customers? No, nobody wishes to do business with a loser. We want everybody to win. And we can have it that way by understanding a system. Family life. The transformation affects family life. In the first place, parents cooperate, both win, as we've just learned. Parents will not rank their children. Do you rank your children? And optimization. They will no longer teach and preach salvation through adversarial competition. They would instead lead us into optimization of a system which everybody would come out ahead. We got a lot of learning to do. And we don't need to learn. Survival is not compulsory. Survival is not compulsory. Nobody need do anything. What about price fixing? We have a lot of learning to do. If a monopoly or a group of us, any two of us or 6 of us that dominate a market would get together to fix prices, we'd be fools to set the price a cent higher than what would optimize the whole system. Our suppliers, ourselves, our stockholders, our customers, the employees of suppliers, our own employees, employees of our customers, and the environment. A cent higher than what would optimize the whole system would lose business. We'd be losers. People will find alternate ways to get around the use of our product or service if we don't price it lowest possible. And of course, the price may need to be adjusted as we learn, get more experience. Any price decided upon today may, because of new knowledge, new figures, or because of technological developments, may require reconsideration tomorrow. A monopoly has the best chance to be of service to the world and a heavy obligation to do so for their own profit. For their own profit. The contributions to our welfare from monopolies have been great. One need only think of the contributions that have come from the Bell Telephone Laboratories, a monopoly responsible to nobody but to themselves. What will the world be without the contributions from the Bell Telephone Laboratories? It would not be this world, it'd be a totally different world. We would not be here. Our economy would not support a meeting like this. Everybody in the United States is an innocent victim of the destruction by the Antitrust Division of the telephone system that the United States enjoyed till 1984. A monopoly it was, but also the envy of the world. We no longer have a telephone system, we have telephones. Big difference. To compete with long lines of AT&T today, a company would face barriers. A competitor would require tremendous investment in circuits, research, advertising. If you were successful in capturing a sizable share of the long-distance market, he and AT&T would both operate at higher cost than one of them alone as a monopoly. Long-distance rates would go up. We would all pay. We would all lose. There would be no winner. The Antitrust Division 3 weeks ago accused a number of universities in the United States of working together to arrive at uniform figures for financial aid to students, as if cooperation like this is a sin against the American people. Actually, this kind of cooperation should be encouraged, as it is a service in the interest of students. Another wrong with the Antitrust Division against the people of the United States was to break up, years ago, you don't even remember, break up AT&T and Western Union. They formed a single company around 1905. Antitrust Division broke them up because they would dominate communication. That was wrong. The function of the Antitrust Division should be education. But they would have to learn. And where are they? Are they here this morning? They ought to be here. They need to be here. They need it. An example of a monopoly that's put on the service of the world is the De Beers Consortium for diamonds. They own the Kimberley mine. They've dominated markets for 130 years. For the diamonds, they've dominated the market for diamonds for 130 years. As I said, they own the Kimberley mine. If De Beers and General Electric wish to work together on the price of diamonds, they should be encouraged to do so, provided they understand the system. And the De Beers Consortium does understand the system. There's no substitute for knowledge. We need knowledge. And where do we get it? The School of Business? Don't be silly. Maybe us in the future. Fordham University and some others are developing. We need knowledge. A system of profound knowledge we can talk about. Consists of 4 parts. Some knowledge about a system, appreciation for a system. We've just been talking about. Some knowledge about variation. Lots of knowledge? No. Some knowledge about variation. I'm very happy to learn that Mr. Alfie Cohn is here and will talk. He's a forerunner on these ideas, cooperation in place of competition, fear of knowledge. And psychology. One need not be eminent in any one of these 4 parts, or in all 4, in order to understand profound knowledge and to make it work. These 4 parts are interdependent. One depends on the other. For example, think of the entwinement between psychology and the theory of variation. For example, as Harold Dodge in the Bell Telephone Laboratories learned in 1926, published it in 1926, the number of defective items that an inspector finds depends on the size of the workload that you hand to him. If you have him 25 at a time, he'll find every defective item. Give him 100 at a time, he'll miss 5 of them. As the workload goes up, the quality of his work goes down. An inspector, careful not to penalize anybody unjustly, will pass an item that is just outside the borderline. An inspector will fudge figures to save the jobs of people, to save the jobs of 300 people. Inspector will fudge the figures to make the place look good. A teacher, not wishing to penalize anybody unjustly, will pass a pupil that is barely below the requirement for a passing grade. Fear invites wrong figures. No one likes bad news. You know what happens to people that bring bad news, bearers of bad news. You know what happens to them. Anyone will present to his boss only good news. A committee appointed by the president of the company will report, come through with resolutions that the president wishes to hear. They jolly well better. Would they dare to do otherwise? An individual may inadvertently seek to cast a halo about himself. The report to an interviewer about on reading newspapers. Sure, New York Times, the best paper. And actually this morning, he bought and read a tabloid. Statistical calculation and prediction based on warped figures may lead to confusion, frustration, and wrong decisions. What makes an orchestra great? Here's interdependence. Low on the left, high on the right. A bowling team. Just add up the scores. Swimming team, just add up the times. Sure, well, when they're not playing, they cooperate to help each other. Your business, your school is here. The orchestra. Your business. It's school, hospital, manufacturing, no matter what. High interdependence between components. Take the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra of London. Why is it great? For great players? No. They're good, but they're not the best in the country. Why is the orchestra great? Cooperation. Every player there, every player in the orchestra is there to support the other 139. That's why it's there, to support the other 139. Theory of knowledge. Most important course you ever took is in the theory of knowledge. Any plan requires prediction. How are we going to get out of this room? How are we going to find our way over to the hotel? How will I get home tonight? I predicted my automobile. I predict that my automobile will start and run. Or I predict that the bus will come. I predict that the train will come. Planning is prediction. Any assumption is prediction. Management is prediction. As Dr. Twitty, who's here in the audience, said some years ago, management is not playing games. Management is prediction. What should be the basis for negotiation? Between any two people, between countries, between divisions, between union and management, between competitors. What ought to be the basis for negotiation? Should be optimization of the whole system. Everybody wins. I said everybody wins. That should be the basis. Why don't we understand it? Is that difficult? Nonsense, that's not difficult. We've been sold down the river on competition. What we need is cooperation. Everybody win. Our main learning must be in the management of people. We're destroying our people. Grades in school, gold stars, ranking people, ranking salesmen, reward at the top, punishment at the bottom, for people, teams, divisions. Merit system, incentive pay, over justification in the form of money paid to people for simply doing their jobs. It hurts their pride. You get accustomed to almost anything. Get calloused, accustomed to a beating. Doesn't hurt as bad as it did the first time. People can get accustomed to almost anything. We've gotten accustomed to a lot of practices that are our ruination. Profound knowledge comes from outside, does not come from inside. A system cannot understand itself. One may learn a lot about ice and know a little about water. The transformation in his company may be water instead of ice. You can learn about ice, a lot about ice, know very little about water. A system cannot understand itself. Enlargement of a committee will not produce profound knowledge. How could it? Popular vote, will that give you the right answer? How could it? How could it? Popular vote is not going to produce profound knowledge. I'm raising some questions. They're pretty important ones. They're terrifying. This question came to me in the seminar. And I'm running out of time. I have another minute. This question came to me in the seminar. Please elaborate on your statement that profound knowledge comes from outside the system. Aren't the people in the system the only ones that know what is happening? The answer is this. The people that work in any organization know what they're doing, but they will not by themselves learn a better way. Their best efforts and hard work only dig deeper the pit that they're already in. Their best efforts and hard work do not provide an outside view of the organization. A system cannot understand itself. One may learn a lot about ice, know very little about water. Time is up. Get me off the platform.
We've got about 10 minutes for questions. We have, come on here. We have allowed about 10 minutes for questions after each of the presentations today. And to facilitate that, if you have a question, there will be microphones in the aisles, and go to one of the microphones. You may even have to get in line if there are a number of questions. And I'll try to point to the person up here. We'll try to cover as many of those as we can in the 10 minutes. State your name and the organization you're from, and then ask your question. Now, anybody out there yet have a question? One over here. We got a microphone.
Yeah, is it on? Yes, you can hear me. I've been hearing comments from management in this country that all we need to do now is look to the Japanese problems with their economy and world markets, the recession, the stock market. Management seems to be using this as an excuse for not implementing the work that needs to be done following your philosophies. Could you comment on that, the Japanese situation, and how we can counter those accusations?
I only learned to listen during the last 15 seconds. The speaker right here, and I was trying to listen otherwise. Did you get it?
He says that he observes that some management in the United States seems to be taking solace or comfort in the current problems that the Japanese economy is taking or having at the moment. And do you have any reaction or comments about that? Is that a fair?
Well, if I had to get my happiness from other people's discouragement and disappointments, I don't think I could be very happy. Is that the way to be happy? Should be a win-win basis. That's not the way that's not a good life. I'm not sure that we understand Japan in the first place. We don't understand at all. Stock there is almost non-existent. Their capital comes from the bank. The 21 men that I talked with governed 80% of the capital of Japan. Stock equity is not a heavy contributor to capital. Totally different from what it is in this country. Here, to raise money, you sell stock. They don't do that in Japan. Different in Japan. We don't understand them. And it's a matter of relationships. Supplier. Some Americans complain hard to do business in Japan. It is if you don't know how. Do you think that a company in Japan and the supplier or suppliers are going to break up a relationship that has existed for 30 years of continual improvement and better understanding, better and better quality, lower and lower prices? Do you think they're going to break that up to let an American company come in? No, go there and offer something they don't have. Well, that's a different story. To try to compete with what they do have and break up a relationship only lead to disappointment. Americans cannot understand cooperation. They think a lower price will do it. No, it's not so. We've got to learn to live in this world. We here in America have not learned to live in this world. We've been living in our own. We think we made the world. The world is what we made it. Those days are over. There was a time when that theorem was correct. In the year 1920, this country North America made half the manufactured product of the world. This country contributed. Frederick Taylor and Henry Ford. High volume, mass production, low cost mass production. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. High volume, low cost mass production has moved out of this country. Into Mexico, Taiwan, Korea, other places, Singapore. I'm going to Singapore in a few weeks. Our educational system is not able to support this country in the times that have fallen upon us. We're going to have to live by brains, not by high volume, low cost production. Those days are gone. We made great contributions to the world, and we're not prepared for the future. The future is now upon us, and we're unprepared, can't learn. Sorry it takes so much time, Ben.
It's fine. Another question here?
Yeah, you mentioned that profound knowledge, it's best to come from the outside. I'd like to know a little more why internally people cannot help themselves. Why do they get stuck? And then secondly, what kind of help would be the best?
Well, you said it, people cannot help themselves. People do not generate profound knowledge. As a good rule, profound knowledge comes from outside, never from inside. Again, let me read that question in a seminar. Don't the people on the job know more than anybody about it? They do not. They do not. They cannot by themselves see the system that they work in. Profound knowledge comes from outside. And by invitation, it'll not come knocking at your door. You have to invite it. Another one?
Another question over here, yes.
Dr. Deming, I work in an industry that's whose sales have always been based on salespeople working on commission, and I've been given an argument by our management in keeping that system up, and that how do we equate the sales force from one salesperson who's selling 120% of his goal versus one who's under his goal, and how do we keep the salespeople happy and motivated to continue to sell on a team basis?
Your top salesman may be doing you a tremendous harm. Your top salesman, you rewarded him for ruining the company. Follow me around. The top salesman selling what people don't want. Or he may have a product that'll sell anywhere. Reward the weatherman for a pleasant day. Same thing. We have a lot of learning to do. And we don't need to learn. Survival is not compulsory. Nobody needs to learn. Incentive pay. Jim McInvale is here. I think he's on the program. Gallery Furniture Company in Houston. On the 1st of January 1991, he put the salesman on salary. Salaries, not commission. Result, sales up every month, better than the month before. And the salesmen are happy now. They're not competing with each other. They cooperate with each other. He took this seminar 2 or 3 times, got that idea into his head, and he was right. Have another instance. You probably have your own.
I can't see whether any other, we get one more out there? All right.
Yes, in education, as Dr. Demings indicated, we are so accustomed to grades, merit, pay, rank, and how do we really build into that process now if we're going to go through a transformation? Would he talk about, the process in education of making the transformation?
The first step is the individual must transform. Metanoia would be the better word, a Greek word, means complete change. That's the first step. The individual changes. He has to then to change his organization.
Our time is up.
As I said, our schools teach information, not knowledge. Information, not knowledge. You pass the examination by cramming your head full of information. Information is not knowledge. There never was a time when they had so much information. Anything that happens anywhere in the world is known within a minute throughout the rest of the world. That's not knowledge, that's information. We're confused. Examination in school depends on how much information somebody can cram into his head. That is not knowledge, and that is not teaching, and that is not learning.
Thanks very much, Dr. Deming.